Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're having a great day so far and welcome to today's video where I have both of these new Charlotte Tilbury Instant Look in a palettes. So if you are interested in these, as excited as I was when I first saw these, then you've come to the right place. We're going to look at the packaging, the shades, the swatches, and of course a demo of both palettes on this face right here. So if you can stand it, then stay with me. Without further ado, let's get started. Okay, so we have two new cheek and eye palettes from Charlotte Tilbury. These are called the Instant Look in a palette. We have Pretty Glowing Beauty and we have Dreamy Bronzed Beauty. These are limited edition as part of Charlotte Tilbury's holiday collection, so you better act soon if you are desperate to get your paws on them because they are limited edition, and I'm expecting these to be uber popular for a few reasons. One, the presentation, the packaging is very alluring, very tempting. Two, these palettes previously from Charlotte Tilbury were so popular. They're so good for travel because they have everything you need for a full face and eye look, and we haven't seen these Instant Look in a palettes for years now. She's been doing different quads palettes that don't contain eyeshadows, so I expect these to be much more popular because we just haven't seen them for a while. The third reason being these price points, £58 or $69, quite a decent, surprisingly low price point for a product like this from Charlotte Tilbury. Typically they're a little higher of a price point, so considering that the packaging is very luxurious, very, very beautiful and over the top, as we've come to expect from Charlotte Tilbury, we expect nothing less, particularly when it comes to holiday. So I expect these will be popular. Who knows how quickly they will sell out, but I personally wouldn't loiter about waiting for them to come to retailers before you snap them up. We never really get confirmation on whether they're coming to retailers and when that will be, because brands want us to buy from the brand website, so they keep that information typically on the need to know basis. So I don't have that information. I expect them to come to retailers pretty quickly. Charlotte Tilbury releases usually do. So these palettes contain 3 new eyeshadow shades according to the information on Charlotte Tilbury's website. We also get a shade of the Awakening Airbrush Flawless Finish powder. So these were the same powders that we saw in her Pillow Talk Beauty Soulmates collection, that brightening shade of her flawless finishing powder. We then have a new bronzer formula for these palettes. We get a matte blush and then we get a brand new blush glow topper formula, which is the glowy blush in the palettes. So let's take a close-up goosey gander at these palettes and do some swatches. First up, we have Pretty Glowing Beauty, the lightest of the two palettes. Just look at that packaging. I don't know if it will come across on camera as stunning as it is in person, but it has like a metallic thread that sparkles and glitters as it hits the light. Truly beautiful. It's absolutely gorgeous in person. And here we have the lightest palette. Rather pink leaning. I was a little concerned about the bronzers in both these palettes look rather warm, but I'm withholding full judgment until we see it on the cheeks. And here we have the palette swatched. Uber pretty, definitely on the lighter side on my skin tone. For reference, today I'm wearing Tom Ford's Ivory Beige foundation shade. And next up we have Dreamy Bronzed Beauty, and this is the deeper of the two palettes. Again, that absolutely gorgeous packaging. It's absolutely stunning. I really love it. And the palette inside. Definitely a little more coral leaning. This palette, obviously there is a depth difference. This one's a little more sort of on the berry side of the shadows. And this is the palette swatched. Gorgeous. Definitely deeper than I expected to look at it. It seems a bit richer than I expected in the pan. So let's have a look at them side by side so you can see there doesn't seem to be a huge difference when you look at them in the pan side by side, but the swatches were quite a bit different as far as the depth, which is good news for those with a deeper skin tone. I definitely feel like we could have done with a third palette. I feel like we almost always see 2 palettes from Charlotte Tilbury when there should be 3. And I also feel like something that we see quite a lot from Charlotte Tilbury is that the lightest palette is always pink and the darkest palette is always peach. And I keep begging to switch them up occasionally and give us a third palette for a much deeper complexion. Okay, so that is all of the info. Let's dive into the demo of these 2 palettes. Okay, so starting off with the lightest palette, that is the Pretty Glowing Beauty. I'm going to dive into this matte shade and I'm using my Sonia G T6. I feel like this is definitely going to be a little bit deeper than, again, it looks in the pan. I sort of thought that shadow is not going to do anything for me. It looks very light, but actually on the skin, especially when you've built it up a little, that's going to be an ideal transitional shade for me. Like I said, I've got more of a medium skin tone, so if you have a fair, light medium complexion, then you are going to get a more intense amount of colour, amount of pigmentation. Next I'm going to use my T2 from Sonia and that middle enhance shade. There is, in theory, like a way and an order you're supposed to use Charlotte Tilbury eyeshadows, but I don't listen to anybody. I'm just out here breaking all the rules. You also could absolutely use, you know, the bronzer and the blush shades on the eye to just make this palette as versatile as possible. Get the maximum amount of bang for your buck. Just gonna add a bit of that matte shade then out of V. Again, that bronzer shade being a little deeper than the matte eyeshadow. You could use that to add some depth to the eye look as well, but this is undoubtedly quite a sort of soft, pretty palette. I'm really excited about this Brighton shadow. Looks uber pretty. I'm a big fan of Charlotte Tilbury eyeshadows. I know a lot of people, it's quite divisive, I feel like, Charlotte Tilbury shadows, but I love them. They're so pretty. I always find them easy to work with. I am feeling a fair amount of fallout from this shadow. Obviously it is more of like a topper, twinkly shade. It's very subtle, this eyeshadow, like in general, across the board. The shades, like both the matte and the shimmers, there's nothing sort of intense. It is really quite soft. I'm just using that matte shade on my lower lash line, and this is my Sonia T3. I'm just using my Rephr 21 to sort of build up that enhanced shade. Yeah, that I'm happy with. I mean, it is very soft and subtle and pretty. Really pretty, but it's not intense, it's not hugely impactful. So a lot of people quite worried about this bronzer pan being very small and hard to get a brush into. I'm going to use my Sonia Hinoki bronzer brush. It is like one of my favourite bronzer brushes, but it is one that's sort of on the smaller side. Yeah, and that is going in there very comfortably and easily. Again, like me, a lot of people are a little worried that these bronzers are going to be uber warm. But I think actually on the skin it's a nice natural shade. Not too light for me. I will need to build a little, but I can use it to bronze absolutely. Really nice, soft, natural bronzer. Actually really nice, that bronzer. I really like that. Ooh. We're shedding. Lighter bronzers, you know, on a more medium skin tone can pull a little muddy or go a little ashy, but I think this is really pretty. Looks beautiful. So with the blushes, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the matte blush with my Sonia Lotus Detail. I'm going to use the matte matte blush first. And then I'm going to go over it like a topper with that glowy blush, because on me, that glowy blush is not going to add colour, it's just going to add glow and luminosity. It might even like lighten the blush and cause me a bit of an issue. So that blush does build very well. This is actually giving me a bit more hope for the deeper palette, that it might be a little more versatile and user friendly for a deeper skin tone than it looks, because these are building quite nicely. Both the bronzer and the blush built really nicely. I will buff this. I want to use the face powder to do that in a moment, but let's first of all dip into the Glow blush. I'm a little worried. Yeah, so this is kind of described as a like topper, blush topper, but to me this is a bit more like a highlighter. I have instant regret for putting that all over my whole cheek. It's definitely a bit more highlighty than I expected, which has really lightened the blush up and it's kind of causing it to pull a little grey. Is it my bad? Slightly, but that is what the instructions say to do. So I'm going to add a little bit of that matte blush back in. That's better. Okay, so now I'm going to take my Sonia TF3 and I'm going to use a bit of this face powder just to blend these edges and brighten up the centre of the face again. Okay, and this is the look with Pretty Glowing Beauty. I will add mascara so we can see the finished look at the end, but really subtle eyeshadows, beautiful cheeks actually. I really am not a pink blush person, or really I don't love a lot of pink. There's specific pinks that I like as far as eyeshadow and lip colours, but I really never wear pink blush. But I think this is really pretty. It's almost like a leaning like a berry mauvey pink, so I don't hate it. It's not like a Barbie pastel pink. I feel like I could wear this. I've built up the blush quite a bit because I just wanted to show you how it might work for a skin tone that's not super fair. You definitely have some buildability in these blushes. I think that's really pretty. So we're going to do exactly the same thing now with the Dreamy Bronzed Beauty. Starting off with the same brush we used, T6, and this smoke shadow, which scares me because it's rather intense and berry-like. I am actually taking my parents to lunch shortly, but don't worry, they're very used to seeing like me have half and half makeup. So they probably won't even notice, to be honest. Okay, I mean, it is rich and it's definitely richer than this side, but it's blended beautifully and it's definitely more wearable than I thought. It's not as red leaning. Again, I think some of these shadows are a bit deceptive in the pan. They almost are looking quite different, I would say, to how they're looking on the skin. The bronzer in particular, I'm intrigued to see the bronzer on this side because the first bronzer pleasantly surprised me, and I think a lot of people, that it doesn't look orange. You know, people always worry about bronzers looking orange, and of course they are supposed to be warm. That's, you know, a bronzer's job. But there are limits, okay? So T2 and the Enhance shade again. The Enhance shade in this Dreamy Bronze palette is definitely a lot more impactful than in the first palette, the Pretty palette. This is like very much a standalone shimmer shadow, whereas I feel like the Enhance shade in that first palette was quite understated. Barely there. Let's try the Brighten shade. Actually looks like it might be a bit more subtle in this palette. It's like almost like, oh no, I lied to you. It's definitely got some kapow. Now I am of course using dry brushes, no setting spray, and I've primed my eyes with concealer set with powder. So there are ways to amp up the impact of these shadows. If you'd like, you could do a spritz of setting spray on a brush, use a finger, use an eyeshadow primer instead of concealer and powder, and you'll get a bit more impact. I'm just going to use my Sonia T5 and a little bit of that smoke shade just to blend this outer V with the shimmers. Okay, and then moving over to same brush as before, T3, little tap on that matte shade and lower lash line. So this side is definitely more impactful, I feel like, than the softer palette, but they're both very pretty. They do definitely feel like two sides of the same coin, if that makes sense. So, you know, they are very similar. It's literally just the same colour story, just richer and deeper on this side. I do wish the two colour stories were different, because some people, you know, it's not everyone will just buy the palette that's sort of aimed towards their skin tone. Lots of people want to buy the palette that has the shades that they prefer and are more drawn to. So it would be nice, you know, for those of us who want to buy both palettes to have something a bit more different, because I feel like both of these palettes are leaning quite pinky. But, you know, that is Charlotte Tilbury. She does love her pink. Okay, so bronzer. I'm going to use this quite lightly. Okay, it was fine. I was a little afraid there. It's a little hard to bronze half the forehead. So let's try and meet these two in the middle. But yeah, I'm using this shade lightly, you know, one touch of the brush into the pan and really blending it. Whereas this side I did build quite a bit and use a heavy hand. But still this bronzer is deeper. So this is with, you know, a really quite light hand. So it's certainly going to bronze, you know, probably get tanned skin quite easily, I would say. It's not going to bronze you if you have a rich, deep skin tone. Let me do a really heavy swatch, build it up. That's about as deep as the bronzer is going to get to. So we definitely could have done with something a bit deeper. So I think because these blushes are so much deeper and richer than in the first palette, I am going to do the same thing as I did that time. I just expect it to work better this time. So, now I definitely applied a little heavily there, but that being said, it's not really wanting to blend, this matte blush. Do you see that? I don't want to really rub it because I don't want to lift up my foundation underneath. But I do feel like we've been left with a little bit of a patch there from where I first applied that. And today, especially for those of you who it winds up, I actually set my foundation with powder to give us powders to blend on top of, just to make sure everything was fair on the products. So I think that's blended fine now. That has, I think I fixed that issue, have I? I'm sure you'll all tell me no. But to me, it definitely looks fine now. But it did take a fair bit of work. So let's go over the top with that glowy blush. And that's definitely got quite a bit of colour to it, quite a bit, and again, really glowy. I really wish we had just done a highlight and a blush. Of course, you could mix the two blushes together and apply them like that. Definitely pretty rich and not built at all. That's one touch of the brush. So perhaps they could be a little more deeper skin friendly than they look in the pan. You know, it does look quite like maybe this is the medium palette, but that's, you know, really light application blended very, very intensely. It's rather rich. So I do feel like the blush is certainly going to work for a pretty deep skin tone, I would say. So I'm going into the face powder now, and I'm just going to try and address this. I'm going to use that to brighten up the centre and just buff this, tone it down a little or a lot. Okay, and so here we have the Dreamy Bronzed Beauty Palette. Definitely richer and a different application process because of how much deeper it is. So using a light hand, a lot of blending and buffing, as opposed to the building that happened on this side, and we still have a much richer berry look. as opposed to this more sort of mauvey pink romantic side. It's like day to night. I'm going to do some mascara and then we'll be back. Okay, so we are back with a coat of my all-time favourite Holy Grail mascara, the Push Up Lashes from Charlotte Tilbury, and everything is finished. So we can have a deep dive into these palettes. Do you have a favourite? Which is your favourite? I feel like the Pretty Glowing Beauty is my favourite. I feel like it suits me the most. It's probably the most appropriate to my skin tone. I feel like the Dreamy Bronze Beauty is quite intense, and I did have to sort of use it carefully, and even then it was a lot. Okay, I had to do a bit of toning down and helping what was going on here. It's still quite rich and deep and intense, which is great news for those of you with a deeper skin tone, because I definitely think these are deeper and more buildable than they perhaps look. Do you have a favourite? I think the Pretty Glowing Beauty is definitely softer and more understated than I expected. That soft, pretty, as the name would suggest, daytime look, whereas the Dreamy Bronze Beauty is definitely a bit more intense and a bit more evening-y. What do you guys think? Do you have a favourite? Okay, let's talk about these palettes. Now, as you guys know, if you know me, if you've been here before, I'm a big Charlotte Tilbury stan, okay? It's one of my favourite brands. It has been for many years. I typically love 95% of the products from Charlotte Tilbury. It's right up my street. I love the finishes. I love the colours, and especially the packaging, and I always love her holiday collection. These face palettes, whether it be her 4 pans that she has been doing more recently, like the Nudegasm palette or the Lovegasm palettes, those sort of bronzer and highlight and blush, but no eyeshadow palettes, I've loved them all so much, and I loved the Look in a palette, the original versions of these. I've had them for many years and I've been a big fan. So when I saw these, and this packaging is probably some of my favourite ever from Charlotte Tilbury, it's so beautiful. And while it is very Charlotte Tilbury, it's over the top, it's glitzy, it's chintzy, it's very girly and feminine, which is typically what we get from Charlotte Tilbury. It's sparkly, it's very festive. These would make excellent Christmassy gifts. That I really love. The palettes themselves, I have to say, I feel a little disappointed by. I don't know necessarily what I was expecting. I think I thought the eyeshadows would be a bit more intense, a bit more impactful. I don't like this glowing blush in the lighter palette. It isn't a blush, really, for many people. You know, and if you have uber fair skin, it's not going to be a blush on its own. It is a highlighter essentially, and as a highlighter, it's not my favourite. It's not super smooth and glossy. It did enhance my texture a little when I applied it, and when I applied it over the top as the blush topper it claims to be, it really lightened the blush and kind of left that grey cast that I don't like. So that I don't love. The bronzer I think is a really nice formula. I think it is a little warmer than I typically love, but I also don't think it's as warm as it looked on first glance. So I don't think it's uber warm and unwearable. I think it's a really nice formula, buildable, easy to use. I do like my bronzers a little cooler, a little more neutral leaning, but fine. I like the look that I came up with the Pretty Glowing palette, but it's not wowing me. The only thing that's really wowing me about these palettes is the packaging. The rest of it I think is soft and pretty and nice, but it's not knocking my socks off. And I really wanted especially the eyeshadows, because we seem to get not that many eyeshadows from Charlotte Tilbury anymore. It's been a long time since we had her single shadows. She doesn't put out those, you know, instant eye look in a palette. She doesn't put out her long, like, rectangular palettes that I used to love so much. We now get those Beautyverse 9 pans, which I don't love as much, and we don't seem to get them very often. I do feel like she's really starting to stick in the pink colour story, which is a little disappointing because I personally am a peachy girl, and we've been screaming, crying out for more peachy, less pink leaning, especially cheek and eye products from the brand. Everything has been very, very pink this year, and this is like no exception, no change to that rule. The deeper palette, I don't love. I was kind of hoping and thinking it was going to be a bit more coral leaning, and like just hoping that would be the case based off of how the shades look, particularly just talking about the blushes. The eyeshadows I like, but again, they're not wowing me or like knocking my socks off. I'm not sort of really loving them. They're just okay and nice, no issues, everything blended nicely. Few specks of fallout, nothing crazy, but there's just not something special feeling about them. I would have loved to have seen something more akin to her single diamond eyes shadows that she put out. Again, the bronzer is decent, nice bronzer, nothing crazy, and the blush is a little disappointing. You know, I really had some issues with the matte bronzer on this side. With it being richer, it really took a lot of work to blend out. It definitely was a little patchy going on, and I had to use some elbow grease to get it looking decent. I think the topper worked better in this palette because it actually was a blush as opposed to being, you know, lighter than my skin tone, which the shade was in the lighter palette. So I think in theory that worked better. But again, I can really see visible glitter flecks on my cheeks right now, and I would have loved a like buttery, glossy highlighter, something very smooth, or more like her regular blushes, her gorgeous glowing blushes. I love those. They have a gorgeous luminous finish to them. These are a lot more sort of shimmering highlighter and topper, as they said, but just not in the way that I was hoping for. So yeah, overall, I feel a little sad. I feel a little disappointed. They're just not as wow and special as I was really hoping they would be, because I do love me a Charlotte Tilbury release, and I think these had so much potential, and there was so much I thought I would and wanted to love about them, but they just left me feeling a bit like, I feel like if I was a regular consumer and not making content for you guys, and I tried these in store, I probably wouldn't purchase them, and that's really shocking. Like, I'm literally #1 Charlotte Tilbury fan, so I don't know what's happened. I'm so sad. What do you guys think? Do you like these better than I did today? Have you tried them? Do you like them better on me than I seem to? Please let me know all of your thoughts in the comment section. Were you excited for these? Do you love them? Did you have a different, better experience than I did? Please let me know all of your thoughts in the comment section down below. I will keep using these and just hope that they are a grower and that I'm going to grow to love them more than how I did today. We'll see. I will keep you posted in my September roundup as to how these are developing, whether I'm liking them more and more or whether I'm even liking them less than I did today. So yeah, I will keep you posted. Stranger things have happened, you just never know. But those are all my thoughts on these new Instant Look inner palettes from Charlotte Tilbury for holiday 2025. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, and I would love to see you in the next one. Otherwise, take care for now. Bye.